You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
All right, welcome to the first installment of our Bad Batch recaps here on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. This is our first show of the year, so happy 2023, happy New Year to everyone here. We have an exciting year planned for you here on the podcast feed. I am one of your hosts, Andrew, and if you're watching on video, you can see that I am the only one of the regular crew here today because we ran into some unexpected last-minute scheduling snafus, but is it okay? It is okay. Because I threw the Hail Mary and I got the Dark Jedi with us. I had to dip into the dark side just a little bit. So, Jarod, how are you today?
I'm great. Connor's podcast dads said, "Go to bed, Skippy. The grown-ups are talking."
This isn't Jedi Survivor, is what he's told me when I said.
And it's okay because we
Bad
had him
Batch.
on. You're like, Connor, what'd you think of the Bad Batch? I was dope, and then that would be the end of the episode.
Yeah, that was the end of the episode.
Tech had that scene, and like, I don't know, man, it was pretty neat. And
All right, yeah, Connor's here actually.
Yeah.
I thought he was gone, but he wasn't.
Wait, I'm sorry. It was pretty neat. Anyway, that was awful. I'm sorry. I love you,
We're
Connor.
allowed. We're his dads. We're allowed.
We're his dads. We're allowed
He
to
makes-
make fun of his
He
one
makes
eye.
the same joke every episode, so we can do the same thing. It's only fair.
Exactly.
Connor, I'm sorry if you're listening to this.
No, he
But
isn't.
he's not. No. But we are here to discuss the first two episodes of the Bad Batch season 2. I have my Bad Batch shirt on in celebration. I had something completely different on, but I realized I had just stains all over it, and I'm like, no, I got to look presentable for the first show of 2023.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Not as presentable
I'm
as
keeping
you.
it Star Wars. It's
Yeah.
Mando. But the show I'm most excited for is being worn quite literally on my sleeve. I'm allowed to curse, right? I always forget.
Yes.
So to make sure. I missed this little green fuck, and I'm
Mhm.
counting the moments to see my little green fuck again.
Look, I've been
Quite
building.
fun.
It's not the same little green fuck, but I've been building the Dagobah diorama. So we have the
Yeah.
900-year-old one because I have it just over here, and then Grogu's somewhere over there, but he's not in the shot right now. So we're going to be talking about the Bad Batch today.
Ooh.
Season 2, episodes 1 and 2. They were called. Was it?
Spoils of War.
Spoils of
Ruins
War and Ruins of War. I was like, is it Spoils or is it Soil of War? I'm like, no, it is
Yeah,
Spoils of War.
To the
which-
victor go the spoils.
Exactly. So, I mean, we really just jumped right into it here. They worked really well as two-part episodes, I believe, in my opinion. It reminded me a lot of the way Clone Wars had their narratives. So we're going to have these multi-episode story arcs, and we're going to tell the story throughout there as opposed to just making each thing about its own episode and just telling the story out, which Andor did as well, which
Yeah.
I'm appreciating that story arc and I that story form, and I hope they keep it because Bad Batch Season 1 to me was very episodic. It had a couple multi-part episodes, and it had a bit of an underlying story throughout the season, but like you'd have the standalones and some were pretty much filler at this point. I know you've said before that you aren't huge on this show. I was pretty, for the most part, pretty high on the first season, but I know you have some mixed thoughts on this show.
Yeah, on the whole, with Bad Batch, and and again with almost all things in this space, it's a matter of taste, personal taste. That is not like higher class, lower class. That's nonsense there.
Mhm.
For me, I felt like the Bad Batch was a little disjointed. At times, I felt like it would work as two different shows.
Yeah.
I had weeks where I was like, wow, this is a really cool story about the Imperial transition. And I would rather be learning more about whatever planet we're watching be forcefully overtaken instead of it just being the backdrop for more hijinks with the
I
Bad
get
Batch.
that. I
And-
totally get that.
And then there were other episodes that were like super zeroed in on the whole like outlaw veterans space A team being chased by Crosshair, storyline, which was basically the only real narrative through line throughout the first season.
Yeah.
And I found myself either wanting to just get Imperial transition stuff or just get like the Crosshair chasing the Batch story. Now, obviously, all of that is still within the confines of the Imperial transition, but either an anthologized look at it in the same way we got an anthologized look at the war or the Clone War, or one just centered on the Bad Batch. At first I also like didn't super attach to any of the characters really. I think that I think the criticism that they all feel like very general caricatures at times, and archetypes is a criticism that rings true for me. At least for the lion's share of the first season. But again, I think the show has good bones. It's fun. It's a fun pulpy adventure. And I think these first two episodes are a good marker of things to come. I enjoyed these first couple episodes a lot more than I enjoyed a lot of season one, and I'm excited for something that might be a little bit more to my fancy. Again, I'm not somebody who's going to try to yuck anybody's yums. If you love the Bad Batch, I know there's a lot of people who did, and there's a lot of people who Bad Batch became something that they were just chomping at the bit for every week. And I'm happy it's back for those people, and I'm happy so far. I think I'm going to be more down with the Batch this time around than I was the first time.
It was comfort viewing for me because I find myself at home with the animated stuff. I do have my criticisms of it. Like I said, I thought a lot of season one, or at least a good portion of season one, was a bit too much filler for the 16 episodes that they had.
Yeah.
If you're going to have many more episodes compared to the live action shows, which only get about 6 to 8, Andor was the exception there, obviously. And I just feel like they could have done more with it. And I feel like that was the case with Resistance as well. But I do really love the group family dynamic, and I especially love Omega as a character. And like you, I also love the stuff that they're playing with in the background of the Imperial transition. And especially one of my favorite things about these two episodes were the continued showing of humanizing the other sides of the Clone Wars and kind of changing the perspective of the Clone Wars as a whole, getting to see good people of Serenno. And last season, getting to see good people from Raxus and showing in the troubles that they had to go through of like getting rid of their own personal biases against the Separatists, and now showing that they have a common enemy or someone that they can rally against in the Empire, because they're going after both of them, obviously, because they were both puppets that were played by Palpatine during the Clone Wars. And I think this episode did a good job at doing that. And I think we've seen a lot of that recently in Star Wars media. And that's something I want to start talking about more on this channel, as I've noticed it, of all of these instances. That might be something I'm working on, just a little bit of a hint there. But we start this episode. Hold on. Before we get started, though, there are two things I want to bring up that are important. The first thing is I am a Buffalo native, so obviously I just want to give my best thoughts to Damar Hamlin and his family. Watching that live was one of the most horrifying and scary things I've ever seen. I've been watching sports my whole life, and that was terrible. I know that the worlds of nerddom and sports don't like to cross over that much because people can get really weird about it. So I try not to cross over that when I'm talking that much. But this was something I really wanted to discuss. There is a GoFundMe out that he has organized. He was doing a toy drive around the time he was in college, and it recently gained a lot of traction. I think it's up to like almost 6 or 7 million at this point now. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for that. And also, hashtag unwhitewash the Bad Batch. We can have all this good conversation about the show, and I personally really enjoy the show as a whole, but it's important. And my viewpoint is, we had a conversation in the Discord server about this. It's like, our opinions as white dudes in the fandom, whether or not like we think it's a super duper important thing to discuss or not, it doesn't matter. Because if
Yeah.
people of color feel less seen and they feel hurt and they feel neglected by this stuff, then by all means listen to their voices. Who are we to tell them what to think?
Yeah.
So those people, they have social media up now. I believe it's Unwhitewashed at Unwhitewashed the Bad Batch or TBB on all platforms. Give them a follow and listen to what they're trying to say. I know the showrunners of the show have come out and said that they're listening and they're going to try to do their best. And obviously, animation, it takes a long time to change a lot of this stuff. And I know a lot of this season was finished during the season 1 when it was coming out. Like, this has been in the works for a while, so I know it does take a while to show results in terms of changes, but I do hope that this does lead to some change and that we can uplift Maori voices and get the spirit of Tamara Morrison back in the show in the way that it should be. I love clones. I'm a clone guy. I'm a clone fanboy, but yeah, it's very important. So Unwhitewashed the Bad Batch. So now that that's said, let's get into the episode.
Yeah,
we start off. Oh, go right
I was
ahead.
going to say. No, yeah. I was going to say on both fronts. DeMar, he's a Pittsburgh guy. I'm from the greater Pittsburgh area as well, and I'm not even a sports guy. And that, I saw it happen on Twitter and have been keeping tabs on the story, and that's incredible.
It's insane.
Wild situation, and I hope there's a reckoning in store for the NFL over the fact that they're the most dangerous sport on the planet for no good goddamn reason. And yeah, the Unwhitewashed the Bad Batch stuff. I think there are a lot of people who need to understand conversations like this require both nuance and care, and you will get out of conversations like this what you put into it. At no point has anybody ever said that it is unethical to enjoy this show.
No one's saying that. You can still enjoy the show and still acknowledge that there are elements of it that need to be called out.
Yeah,
some of which
stuff that isn't even conscious.
Yeah, some of which when they were bringing it up, I was like, I never even put 2 and 2 together with that. So that was, I know a couple podcasts put out statements. RuPaul's Pod Race being one of them. Shout out to them. And I read their piece, and I was like, I never even thought about a lot of this. So, yeah, what you were saying.
Both things can be very true. You get what you get what you put into conversations like this, and I also think that to keep conversations productive, and far be it from me to advocate for any type of like respectability politics, as I think that's horse shit. 99.9999999% of the time, but also I think there is an element of when you know better, you do better. And I think it's true that a lot of well-meaning people step on rakes and don't realize when the art that they're making is harmful. And I think we as a society have gotten better at recognizing harmful tropes, harmful representations, and have gotten better at calling attention to it. And now we're at an interesting crossroads of learning how to call attention to it and have people either acknowledge it or do nothing with it, and where you go next with those steps.
I agree.
But yeah, all of that very important prerequisite for
I
conversations.
Think a lot of, obviously not all, but I think a lot of what I've seen for people that are really passionate about this movement is they do have a love for these characters, and they just wish that they were seen and portrayed in a way that they should be, which is honoring Tamara Morrison's heritage and not being uber duper whitewashed, especially in merchandise, which is where I notice it the most. Where it's like, who are these white motherfuckers that I'm seeing right now? Because that is not
goddamn white baby. Is this?
Yeah, it's disgusting. So we had to bring that up. We had to bring up because it's important, and I feel like we should acknowledge it before we sing the praise or talk about some stuff that maybe we had some issues with going into the episodes. But now we dive into this, and we start off and we get that scene on the beach with those crab creatures that has been in like every trailer, every piece of marketing that they've put out for this show so far. And it did in my mind, a nice introduction of reintroducing us to all these characters after kind of a year and a half. And I think it's weird that they did that and it worked the same way that they did, because originally this show was supposed to come out, I believe, in April or May of 2022, and then it got delayed to September, and then it got delayed again to January, which is where we are now. Obviously, this was supposed to come out before shows like Andor and Tales of the Jedi, and here we are seeing it after. But I think it did. I did watch Star Wars Explains review, and it did do a good job at highlighting the stuff that both Andor and Tales of the Jedi showed in their narrative, especially with the Dooku stuff that was on display here. So I think it was a happy accident that it worked out this way. But very Indiana Jones-like at the beginning of this one. We get to see the Bad Batch with all their new looks. The teals and the oranges, I think, pop a lot more than the season 1 looks. Omega's got a whole new redesign now. She's older. My child is growing up in front of our eyes. She's got the helmet now. She's more proficient with her light bow and arrow, and she's taken out these crabs. And it was just cool to see, because I have such a protective feeling about Omega. Like, every time Omega gets in danger, I'm like, no. So it was great seeing that, but it's also great seeing that a lot of season 1 relied on Hunter's unwillingness to let Omega join missions and go on these adventures with them. And now to see her be a full-fledged member of the group just shows the development and just shows how much time has passed since Camino. I am a bit shocked that we got no Crosshair in these 2 episodes, but again, it is a 16-episode season. We don't need to rush to everything.
Yeah.
But I was like, maybe a little bit of something, but we did get a little thing at the end that I think is leading towards the main overarching theme of this season, which I'm very excited for if that's where they're going here. But this opening scene, first of all, it's beautifully animated. Like the beach animation and the colors and everything, I thought it looked tremendous. And it was great seeing this group again and just getting like the quick reminders of their personalities and how they work as a team. And I thought it was a great opening scene. And I liked that we know that this scene was coming, because it was in every trailer. So I just right off the bat, like, okay, here's the scene. So now that we can have a bunch of surprises later on. So I thought it was a nice way of opening things.
Absolutely. And I think, you got to remember, again, at the core of a lot of Star Wars and Star Wars animation, especially,
Pulpy fun.
It's got to be pulpy fun, and it's got to be, accessible for the kids. And I think for the kids who are like, a year and a half out from when the Bad Batch first came out, might need a little bit of a refresher,
Mm-hmm.
So you get like, oh, okay, cool. And it's really good at bringing everybody up to speed, and in such a way that, like, aside from the really big moments of season 1, namely the destruction of Tapoka City, like, you could have just jumped into season 2. And even then, you get enough of those, like, they were on the run, and now they're, like, on the run. Like, presumed dead on the run. So I thought that was a really clever way to kind of bring the audience, back up into the feel and the vibe of the show. I hate to be a negative Nancy, I will say, and he got some much needed character development, but through both of these episodes, man, I thought having a year and a half away from Tech was going to let him, like, reset with me. But, like, I'm just waiting for him to say Bazinga. I'm going to be honest. Like, it's painful. I vehemently dislike Tech. And it hurts because he has my favorite suit of armor. Like, yeah. I like his armor the most. Echo has the best helmet. Which granted, part of it's his, like, Lobot head thingy.
Yeah.
But I can't stand Tech. And throughout both of these episodes, he was wearing on me. And there came a moment where for a split second, I'm like, oh my God, are they about to kill Tech? And there was like that there's that like surprise.
He almost got nemicked. I was like, wait a minute,
almost
hold
got
on.
Nemicked, and like he collapses while he's fighting that one clone, and it like seems like he's might at the very least get captured. And again, for a very brief moment, I went through all the emotions.
Yeah.
Because I had a brief moment of, oh my God, like Tech might go down. And then I went, Tech might go down. And I kind of just got to ride that for a little bit. And then he was okay. He got better. You know, it's a kid's show. I get it. But
I mean, we did see a death later on. So
yes,
I mean, Clone Wars is not above killing their characters. So I'm assuming Bad Batch will be the same. But how much of a shock would that have been if the first 2 episodes of the season
you kill off one of your main characters? Batshit insane.
I'd be like,
batshit insane.
Where do we go from here? It's like, where's Tech? Oh, he died. Sorry. Like, that would have been, maybe that was, they were like, I mean, maybe because I'm assuming Bad Batch, well, I don't know. What would have been in production first, this or Andor, in terms of just writing the scripts? Because maybe they saw that and were like,
I mean, this was in the can for so much longer. So
like, we can use that in a more heartbreaking way, getting crushed by a giant crate.
Yeah.
That whole sequence of them like trying to escape and then falling out with like the cargo crates, I thought was really cool. And it was like, it did have some suspense where like you're like, all right, well, because they do they end the first episode of them falling. It's like, oh, it hasn't turned on yet, and they're like, oh, they might fall to their deaths.
Yeah,
and it's like the Saturday morning cartoon where like they cut to commercial break, they're going to be fine, but it's like it was a nice way of building suspense, and I did enjoy the action throughout these 2 episodes, especially splitting the groups up and getting to do different like groups and dynamics between those characters, where you had Omega work with Echo and Tech, who are 2 that she really didn't interact with much in season 1, and Echo got that much needed character development that he didn't have much of in season 1. Obviously, he had several appearances in the Clone Wars to give him more development compared to the other members of the batch, but he also just got sidelined a lot, so it was nice to see more of
thing, Echo. And like, no, pardon me, no disrespect to the clone bros out there, of which I know you are one. Yeah, but like so much of the character for a lot of the clones that we glom onto from the Delta Squad crew and all of the 501st, they're all bros, they're all friends, they're all buds, and all of them throughout the Clone Wars are pondering the same moral quandary.
Yeah.
All of them are dealing with and unpacking what happens when the war's over? What am I made for? A lot of existential shit for, again, what is ostensibly supposed to be a kid's show.
Mm-hmm.
Pardon me. So having Echo here now, he has taken all of the, and this is before any like direct development for him, he has taken all of the clone ethical dilemma a step further.
Yeah, now he's like, well, how should we fight the Empire? We should be doing more, whereas all the other members of the batch right now are like, oh no, we got to be mercenaries, or we don't know what we're going to do.
But like just his very existence.
Mm-hmm.
There was the whole, well, what do we do when we, like an entire, civilization of people essentially that were bred for war? What happens when there's no more war? Let's take that a step further. What happens now that I am back from being basically dead for the back half of the war? Well, on top of being dead, the war is over, and everybody I know is under mind control. So I'm with this group of people I don't know that well. Everybody I know and love is dead except for these folks. I want to be doing more because all I know is fighting, and we're not fighting enough. It's a really complicated place for Echo to be in. So to give him we need to be fighting the Empire directly, voice, I think is really interesting. And
Yeah.
I love that Star Wars continues to mine the very specific notion of finding the willingness to stand and fight as a theme. Because Star Wars, for the most part, has always focused on the how to fight. It has always been a hero rises and chooses the fight, or somebody is eventually galvanized into the fight. Your Lukes, your Hans, your Finns. And then via The Last Jedi, we get our first glimpse into, okay, you have accepted the notion of fighting. Now we're going to show you what that means and how to do it right. And that theme has been evolved on and built on in Andor, in Rebels, and now again here in the Bad Batch. I'm on everything else basically
Yeah.
since The
Obi-Wan
Last Jedi.
Kenobi had a lot of those
Kenobi,
themes.
great example.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think this is a really interesting direction for Echo. And like, I could see him, really, really going to blows with the rest of his teammates.
Yeah,
Because
I
like,
can see this being a very big especially because we saw Omega get caught in the middle of it during these episodes because she thought that he was calling her out and saying all of our lives are screwed now and we're stuck and we can never go back home or live a normal life because of Omega. And then that leads to her crisis and her need to like feel like she needs to bring back this war chest and having that moment between the two of them. And I really liked that development and that dynamic because as I said, we didn't really get much of like Echo and Omega like by themselves in season 1. It was mainly just Hunter and Wrecker were the two ones that had the biggest relationships with Omega. So getting to see Tech and Echo work off of her this episode, I really enjoyed. And I'm going to be very intrigued where Echo goes in this trying to push the batch less towards mercenary work with Sid and Space Wanda Sykes and more towards fighting the Empire directly, like what Rex is doing right now, and potentially more and more clones standing up against the Empire, which we were seeing more and more of, which I think I just got a jump scare from something on my browser. Hopefully that's not going to get into the audio. You just see me going like this at one point.
Well, I didn't hear it, so it means you're probably safe.
Not like Stream like Labs where you just whatever is in your browser starts playing in the audio. But
yeah, I will say, just tangentially related to Space Wanda Sykes, I can't remember exactly.
Wrecker? Or was it Tech? Which was it? Was it Tech or was it Wrecker that she was like, "Oh, look at you, brown eyes," and then Tech, it was Tech.
She
and then
calls
Tech was
Tech
like,
brown
"We're all
eyes," and then she hits Wrecker with some like, "Hey, big boy." Yeah, and then again, like that was another moment I had with Tech where I'm like, just say Bazinga. Just say Bazinga and get it over with. Phenotypical. Like, man, you don't have to write you're too smart for his own good characters to sound like this. Donatello from the goddamn Ninja Turtles doesn't fucking sound like that. Like, he's brainy and he's awkward and he's a dork, but at least he's not like, actually, just Tech's getting on my damn nerves. But anyway, I don't remember how old I was exactly. I know I was probably a little too young to watch it, but I loved it no matter what. Wanda Sykes' stand-up special, it came out right after Barack Obama was elected. It was like, "I'ma be me" or "I'ma do me" is the name of the special. It was great. I've loved Wanda Sykes literally since the Clone Wars was airing as a child. So when we hear her voice in like whatever ad or trailer it was, I was like, oh damn. And I love that the Bad Batch for whatever reason is like pulling in all of these like very specific comedy greats.
Yeah. It's so weird how they keep doing that.
It's a very specific like crowd of comedians who they have tagged in for the Bad Batch. But yeah, at any rate, and like what you were saying with the war chest and the very mission, I think that there's some really beautiful visual metaphor for the Bad Batch skulking through like the rotting corpse and bones of Count Dooku's castle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like in Dooku, and you know, Alex pointed this out and very, very astutely pointed out how, you know, post seeing Tales of the Jedi and seeing Dooku at that crossroads that many disillusioned young men find themselves at, of the system is broken, I feel abandoned by the system is not helping me or anybody, quite frankly. And then most men, especially at least, and find themselves at a crossroads of literally going to the left or to the right. That in those moments, you end up radicalized in one of two directions. I say this as a radical leftist myself. I'm not saying that, ooh, scary left. You know, we're not here to gay your kids. And Dooku made the wrong decision and went right. Now, of course, you have all the fairy tale elements of Star Wars within, you know, the dark side and the way that it inherently warps the mind of that Force user. But through whatever circumstances, Dooku made the wrong decision, and we see how
he was fighting corruption and ended up becoming the one.
Exactly. Yeah,
he corrupted.
Yeah, and seeing Dooku go from I'm gonna kill this senator in the streets for making his constituents, making the people who count on him live in squalor, to here are these gigantic treasure chests from the galaxy over, from them pillaging worlds in the name of, you know, quote unquote spreading democracy. Sound familiar?
It's never political.
Star Wars
There's
no politics
in Star Wars.
It has never been political.
Never. Not once.
Darth Sidious isn't George Bush, I promise. But yeah, no, I think it's I love the storytelling that's happening here. Also, for Knights of the Nerd Republic, we have a Patreon versus series, and watching this episode, I had a moment where I out loud went, "How have I not used Dooku's throne room as an arena yet?" Like I out loud went, "How did they never fucking think of this yet?" And then started writing it down. Like as I was like, I don't want to forget this again.
It was so cool seeing it again and just seeing it abandoned, and especially the just the most Dooku thing ever of him having a secret elevator in his throne room that Wrecker just breaks. And then another one where like you just hear them crashing down and you're like, what happens there? And then the next time we see them, they're just totally fine. I'm like, okay, well, there's no suspense there.
Listen, Wrecker has super strength. They never make it abundantly clear. This is another thing I love about the Bad Batch, in like a all Star Wars is kind of dumb and silly kind of way. When we meet them in season 7 of Clone Wars, they're basically like all the members of the Bad Batch have superpowers. They're like Hunter has like a Daredevil-esque echo sense. Wrecker is basically the Hulk.
Yeah, he's the Hulk and Thor Ragnarok. Is how I would describe it.
Crosshair, I almost called him Deadshot.
Same thing.
Crosshair basically, but Crosshair basically has that like Deadshot, like I am like physically incapable of missing shit thing going on. Very Hawkeye, like just inhuman good aim. Tech has like super brain, and Echo's a cyborg. You know, like they all like legit have superpowers, and I think it's weird that like over the course of season 1 and now into season 2, like it's just becoming they have weird mutations and they're an elite squad. Like Wrecker, it's starting to feel like is just big. Like I show me Wrecker picking something ridiculous up. Like we got a little bit of that with him like literally carrying around the cannon from the AAT, which was funny. But let the Bad Batch use their like legit superpowers more. It's something that I think gets glossed over as a fandom a lot, is that the Bad Batch has fucking superpowers.
Yeah, and I feel like the only one that's used a lot is Tech's intellect and smartness, which I know you love, and then
Oh yeah,
Hunter's tracking skills. Like that's
Hunter
pretty much it.
Bazinga. Anyway, I'm sorry. I have one joke and I gotta stop.
We gotta just put that on a shirt of just Bazinga, but it's Tech.
Yes.
That's what we need to do. But yeah, no, it was nice seeing that, and you're right that they should use the things that they were introduced as more. But like, I just thought it was cool. Like Wrecker literally just becoming a human tank at one point. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then just it reminded me a lot of his first episodes in Clone Wars season 7, where he's just so badly wants to blow up Admiral Trench's ship, and then gets to at the end.
Yeah,
like Wrecker, here's this. Oh, it's like I get to blow this up, and then there was that, which was just
I hate to keep nitpicking. I feel like an ass because I enjoyed these 2 episodes, but I laughed audibly and hard when in the moments where the Bad Batch lets go of their no kill rule. Cause it's so random when they'll just fuck it and you just like let it ring out at somebody for real. Like, and again, like I'm not saying that it makes the show bad or anything stupid like that, but like every time they let their blasters off, it's always on stun.
Mm-hmm.
And then the moment it's like, oh man, they're in a V-wing. I don't know how else to handle this. I'm just gonna blow this guy the fuck up. And Wrecker just lets that shot and blows the fucking thing up.
Yeah.
Same with the gunship. Like at least 12 clones died right there.
Yeah, definitely.
And they show that gunship. They don't.
And especially because you see Wilco at the end of the episode, helmet off, like mourning the clones that perished during that battle.
Yeah.
And you are right, where like every time you see them in a blaster fight with the clones, it's always on stun. And it was probably all the case throughout season 1, but it was just something that either I forgot about because it's been so long, or
you're right.
Anytime
they're dealing with clones,
Siege of Mandalore, it's like they don't want to kill their brothers, but Wrecker's like V-wing, whatever. Like,
yeah, and he shoots the tank blaster like near a bunch of clones. Like he's not aiming for them, but also like that's way too close, man. You know you're gonna fuck somebody up. And that gunship, man, I would have had so much respect for the animators if they showed us clones not dying in that gunship. Like if they went out of their way to be like everybody's okay, but no, they chose that thing swerves down, just folds in on itself on impact on the face of a mountain, and then fucking blows up.
It was cool seeing.
They said, "Fuck them clones."
Yeah.
In that gunship.
It was cool seeing V-wings, though. I remember the V-wing was one of the first Lego sets I got as a kid. I probably still have it somewhere. So I was like, "Oh my god, V-wings!" It was so cool seeing them again. And then they had pretty much the same sounds as the TIE Fighter later on in the episode. So maybe she was like, "Oh, I like that. Let me use that in the future." And then just goes from there. But again, these episodes, it was very much, to me, it didn't feel like 2 distinct episodes. It felt like one episode split into 2, which was pretty much the same way Andor did it, which was we're just going to stop at a random point and then go from there in the next episode, which I think is I do like it. But definitely, if it aired like 2 separate weeks, like if this was only like a 1 episode premiere and like we only got Spoils of War, I'd be like, that's it? Like, so the fact that it was aired this way, I like a lot more. And again, getting to see Serenno in a new light, and getting to see, first of all, the shot of like them looking over the city and just being completely bombarded, getting like the Empire. This was such a core Separatist world. This was Dooku's home world, and now it's just blown to smithereens because they don't care anymore.
It's emblematic of the way that the Emperor does not give a damn about the people he treated as pawns, especially the Separatists. the non-humans, like, again, I don't think we talk enough about like the fact that the Empire was built to be human supremacist, and that, as is often the case with opportunists, right-wing authoritarians, they may not believe all of the horrible racist rhetoric that comes out of their own mouths, but they know other people will. And they know that it's a very easy point to kind of stick into the conversation and turn into a wedge issue. So it is not by accident that Sidious built the Separatist alliance around non-human species and non-human entities,
Yep.
like the Banking Clan, like the Trade Federation, etc., and turn them all into pawns, and then made it so that there would be an inner upper class humans who could then have another to isolate. And again, that is a core tenet and feature of real world fascism, and we see it exist even in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That again, I think it's a very important note that does not get talked about when talking about the very, very not political nature of Star Wars.
No, definitely not. But like the fact that you have all of those worlds and those people, and then what happens? The war ends because Palpatine says when it ends.
Yep.
Immediately has Vader go and wipe out all the Separatist leaders, and then those that weren't, their worlds get occupied, and their people are enslaved, and their planet's essentially destroyed.
Yeah.
And I did not really care for the Raxus episode of season 1 when I first watched it. I was like, this is kind of eh. But it was that first little glimpse of seeing the Separatist people and these homeworlds and planets in a new light, and changing the perspective of the war a little bit to where you get to see the quote unquote good people on both sides that like they tried to do in Clone Wars a couple times. You had that one episode with Mina Bonteri, and then that was pretty much it. But this episode with Serenno, getting to see the old man in the forest, Romar, I believe was his name.
Yeah.
Getting to see good people that just happen to live on the Separatist homeworlds, and showing that, hey, this was just our radical leaders. This doesn't represent the whole people. And Brotherhood, the book that came out last year, and also did a really good job at doing that as well, humanizing the Nemoidians and showing that Cato Nemoidia isn't just the Trade Federation, and it isn't just Viceroy Gunn, right? And everyone's favorite character is Senator Lot Dodd. It is, people that have this rich art and culture. And when he was opening that Serenian box later in this episode, and he talked about the rich history of his culture, I was like, this was exactly what they were talking about in Brotherhood. And I immediately made that connection. And I'm like, I love that we continue to keep seeing these themes of seeing the Clone Wars, which has been a narrative theme, well, since 77, but really diving into it since 2002. And all of these years, we had, like I said, that lone Clone Wars episode or episodes or two where we get to see some genuinely good people on the side of the Separatists because that's where they're from, or they just are disillusioned by the Republic. And as you pointed out when you came on the main show, it's like the one way you can distinguish the Republic and the Separatists is one carpet bombs random lemur people, and then the other one doesn't and has the lightsabers. So we're like, okay, those are the good guys. But we're seeing that. And then I remember one of the first things that we saw in the new canon of kind of changing our perspective on the Separatists was those Rogue One tie-ins where they were like, Cassian's family is Separatist. And then we saw a little bit of that with Andor. They didn't outright like say Marva Andor was a Separatist, but like you could put two and two together that Marva and Clem were. And I remember at that point being like really like whoa, because at that point we were like Separatist equals evil.
Yeah.
So to see one of the main people of the Rebel Alliance in that movie be a former Separatist, you're like, oh, wow. But when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, obviously the former members of the Republic and the Jedi that weren't for this would be against the Empire, but also obviously the people that were against the Republic that then turned into the Empire and were both a victim of Palpatine's cruelty are going to go against the Empire as well. But you never thought about it that way. So to see that we're getting more of that, I really enjoy.
To re-expand upon the point I made before that you were alluding to, you know, if you strip away for a moment the Confederacy of Independent Systems being a puppet army for the Sith, and you take away the figureheads who lead the CIS are gajillionaires and businesses that see a profit motive in siding with the Confederacy. If you look at what they're fighting for, if you look at like their mission statement, and if you take a younger Dooku at his word, they are unequivocally the good guys in the Clone Wars. And by virtue of, they're more controlled by the Sith because of Count Dooku being their figurehead. In whatever nonsense you want to do, and they're secretly actually in cahoots with Darth Sidious. So like you have to, so you make the Separatists evil to keep the story more simple. So you have your stories of, what I said before, where you have the evil army of robots carpet bombing cute little lemur people, to make clear who the villains are. Mm-hmm. And then every so often you have a quote unquote good Separatist. And it's really funny. And part of me wishes for more stories told in the Clone War era that you could get into. Oh, hi, my family was sold into slavery because the Republic turned a blind eye to certain planets that were not within its immediate vicinity. And now my entire family's enslaved by crime lords. And I hate the Republic because they let that happen. Which is something that the Separatists could take a moral opposition to if it weren't for the fact that they also are involved in a slave trade.
Yeah.
Which again, could you say that there is a real world parallel that every time you have in history a radical movement that exists to liberate, they also are involved in their own form of oppression? Yeah, that's true as well. Look at the American Revolution. They fought, talked all day long, a really big game about freedom and all men being created equal, and almost all of them owned slaves. Yeah. And every single nation the world over formally abolished slavery years before the States did, including our Papa in England, like all of that. So maybe it is just as weird and complicated in the real world. But yeah, I'm glad we're seeing more of the actual not mustache twirling sociopath. Ooh, I get to enslave children and bomb monkeys. Yay, villains.
It makes it feel more like a real war,
fucked up.
And deepening the lore of, of course you're gonna because we all exclusively focused on the good guys and the worst of the Separatists. But of course, in a war, there's gonna be people that just want to either serve their country or in this case their planet, or didn't support any of it and just wanted to just live amongst themselves and be free, and are trying to fight whatever version of oppression that is going up against them. Which I liked, and I really liked this old man character of just the way that he kind of became a representation of that, and bringing Omega towards a new light of when we get to see her just kind of have those moments of that childhood she never had, and then later have that kaleidoscope go with her as a reminder of that and a reminder of him. And the whole theme with her and Tech of letting go from that need to have this treasure, to feel like she needs to do this to be a part of a team, or to make sure that the batch doesn't end up in trouble, or that they're always going to be running from something. Whereas eventually, I think it's going to turn into they're going more towards fighting and not running, which is very Andor. But it's very Star Wars in a way as well. So I think that's what we're going to end up going here. But it was just different seeing Serenno, which we didn't see often in Clone Wars, but whenever we got Dooku's castle was always such a cool location. But seeing it just empty and just seeing nothing but clones just occupying it, and like something that we used to see as like, okay, that's the figure of good and a figure of a good, quote unquote, and a figure of the Republic, is now just so ominous in the new Imperial era. The all white armor. It was a bit like, it took me it did take me back a little bit, because so much of season 1 focused on, we're going to start phasing the clones out. Camino blew up, and yet we got no conscripted troopers or TK troopers in these 2 episodes. It was all clones still. But the ending with Wilco, I think that's going to be what's going to be happening to these clones, is more and more of them are going to start not blindly following orders, which, you know, as someone would say,
good soldiers follow orders.
And now that more and more are going to be like, okay, no, fuck the Empire, they're going to be taking them all out. See, yes, in the time since you've been here, I've mastered the art of StreamYard's clips. So had to switch a Bad Batch one in there.
Oh, once I'm off my hiatus and get the new studio set up, I gotta have you on so you can enjoy the clips du jour that we have on the TNAP one.
Of course,
too damn many.
I need the Alex Jones ones in my life, and just all that stuff. All that. That's what
the Alex ones are my favorite.
It's so great.
I do the voice, but I'm already coughing enough.
No, I think I think we can give you a pass on that one. But then going through, I'm bouncing back and forth throughout these episodes. But I also did really like them when Echo, Tech, and Omega were escaping through that cargo ship. Like, I liked the look of it. I liked them navigating through it, and then be like, okay, we got to get through the escape pods, and then the clones figuring it out, deploying all the escape pods, and then them escaping through the cargo ship, which then Tech almost got nemicked, and he was I think he said he broke his femur, so I'm like, is he going to be hurt throughout the entirety of the season?
Yeah, it's his femur. No. He calls attention. I think I broke my femur.
Bazinga.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really, like, getting to see, we're seeing more of, with the old man on Serenno and with stuff like the Raxus episode, we're seeing more of the Batch's worldview change in front of our eyes. Because there was a moment where even Tech, who is the smartest of the smart, said something. Oh, because when the old man opens the box that he was working on, he's like, oh, it's a Separatist artifact? He's like, no, it's a Serenno artifact. And he's like, we existed before the war, you know. And he's like, I never thought of it that way. Because it's like, yes, he may be, the Space Jimmy Neutron, but also he was born and bred for this war. So he's going to have that bias, bubbled worldview of these worlds are separatists, and that's all they are. And that was a theme of Brotherhood, where it's like, of course, there's more to that, but they never realize it, because whether you're a Jedi, whether you're a clone, whether you're just a victim of the propaganda, you're always going to have your biased worldviews. So when you have something, or you meet someone that's increasingly changing that and opening you to a whole new world of people and perspectives, it's going to change you a lot, and we're seeing that throughout different members of the batch. And I thought this was a really great scene.
I agree, and I think that again, real world parallels. I think that in the same way that a lot of people over the last few years have started to realize that and have started to realize the indoctrination of their youth. I think that we're going to see that happen with the Bad Batch here soon. Like, I think there's going to come a point, especially with moments like, oh, it's Separatist. No, it's Serenian, actually. Because Serenno was a planet before it was just Count Dooku's throne world. That the Bad Batch would realize, oh, we were pilled just as badly as the clones that are fighting for the Empire now are, but for the Republic.
Yep.
Like our whole understanding of the galaxy and the people who live in it was based in a false dichotomy and in a binary that existed solely to propagate, the Republic as being the only legitimate government that the galaxy could ever see. So again, I think it harkens back to the real world and in the way that we, as a people, especially younger people, are starting to get wise to a lot of ways we have been deceived and indoctrinated into a lot of beliefs that deserve to be reanalyzed as we get older.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it any better myself. But we get those moments mixed with the Bad Batch signature, which is like fun action pulp, which, I loved Andor. I really did. But, there are so many different forms of Star Wars. So, of course, getting stuff like this again, it's like, okay, this feels like home to me. And
yes,
it's like there's so many portions of the Star Wars buffet that you can have a whole different bunch of stuff. So, like, yes, I agree that, like, Andor to me was my favorite of the shows. But also, like, I don't want everything to be exactly like Andor in terms of tone.
No.
I just want all the shows to get the care and production and resources that Andor got. So they all have the potential to be the best that they possibly can be. But that's another conversation for another day. We got Wrecker and Hunter just blowing a bunch of stuff up. We got V-Wings. We got speeder bikes again, which I love that sound design. And it was a really fun fight. We had Tech literally taking out clones on one leg, as you mentioned, almost passed out. We were like, what is going on here? And then a really great Indiana Jones type moment again with Omega and Echo.
Elsa, let it go.
Having have to let it go, which was great. And then they end up leaving. They get off Serenno. We don't know what's going to happen with Sid and them. I feel like this happens a lot where Sid hires them for a mission. They don't end up getting the thing that they went there for. And then she just keeps hiring them afterwards. So they were really banking on this war chest, but we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the season. But we get our first little glimpse of what might be the big theme of the season, because we go back to Serenno and we see everyone's favorite Imperial, Admiral Rampart. God, everyone he's so awesome, right? And he's talking to Captain Wilco, and Wilco he's like, oh, there's something wrong with your report. It says here that Clone Force 99 was here, and Wilco's like, yeah, definitely, they were here. I saw two of them. He's like, no, they perished at Tipoca City. And Rampart was like, okay, we need to make sure that you edit this. And Wilco's like, no, I'm not going to blatantly lie. I'm not going to blindly follow your orders. And Wilco says, fuck you, and guns him down. He says, I'll be the one that covers this up because he doesn't want to be known as the failure.
No.
And he wants to cover his ass, so he's going to take out them. And because clones are now one of the new peoples that are under the Empire's thumb and being oppressed, he's just going to take out his military officer just like that. because he won't lie on a mission report for Rampart.
Yeah,
Which,
and I think that again in a first 2 episodes, everybody's talking about like, oh, Echo finally got some character. Oh, Tech finally got some character development. Dude, fucking Rampart finally got some character development.
really.
Like, I got so confused watching the first season where I legitimately had a moment where I'm like, did I miss an episode where like we were supposed to consider Rampart the big bad? Like, did that happen? Did they have a moment where Rampart was like, I am the villain of this show. I'm going to, and I felt like I missed something. And it's like, no, we just decided that he was going to be the big bad. And I'm like, okay, cool, I guess. This is the most bland Imperial officer we've had up to this point. And now you just have that brief moment of you won't lie and I'm not going to get motherfucked by Tarkin and lose my rank because of it. Nah.
Yeah. No, it's like, I can just kill you.
Yeah.
And the shot of him, because I was like, this isn't going to end well. But then when he pulls the blaster out, shoots him, and we get that shot of him, like the
His
wide shot
body
of him falling down, I like almost like shit my pants. I was like, I was not expecting it to end this dark. But man, oh man, did it, because we saw
it goes out on a grim note.
We saw Hauser and him rallying against the Empire last season. And thankfully that did not end with him getting fucking shot at the end of the episode. So he's still out there somewhere in all of our hearts. But Wilco, he does not get to say the same thing. And I'm hoping that this is going to lead to more and more clones pulling a Hauser or pulling a Wilco and rising up against the Empire. And this will be the batch's true purpose and true way of fighting, is rallying up all these clones and taking on the Empire that way, or helping former clones that work for the Empire like escape and find new lives, kind of like how the Path is doing in Kenobi. I would be really interested in seeing something like that. But Rampart finally means business, which is good, because he's not just here to say bland things and be like, I think we should get rid of the clone troopers.
Something Empire, something Diet Tarkin.
Yep. And finally we get something here. So maybe he's going to be a compelling villain. And also, what does this mean for Crosshair? Because I assume that Crosshair kind of like left out that little tidbit about him, his brothers making it out of Camino alive, or is Crosshair with the Empire at this point? Who knows?
Well, he will be with the Empire, because we all know that Commander Cody scene that everybody was going feral over for some reason.
But is he back at this point, or is he still like making his way back there?
I think Rampart knows that the Bad Batch is alive. Yeah. I don't think he learned through Wilco that they survived. I think he's known, and because Wilco is like, hey, I'm pretty sure Clone Force 99 was here, that Wilco's like, oh, you got to die now, because Crosshair's playing ball with me and not saying anything about it.
Yeah,
but so I think the wheels are going to come off really soon with that secret.
Are like Rampart and Crosshair going to have like a Dedra and Blevin type of thing in Andor, where they're just going at each other because no one in the Empire can ever work together? They're always just trying to take each other down to boost themselves up further. Or is this going to be part of Crosshair's eventual realization that, hey, fascism, probably not my thing?
Not it.
Yeah.
Fasci ain't it.
No. So like, because I think it's interesting that Cody is potentially going to be in this role of, he's going to be one of those clones that stands up, because in Legends, again, I wasn't a huge Legends person, but to my understanding, he was Empire through and through. And then we had those old Kenobi scripts come out where the original film script had him on Tatooine with Obi-Wan, redeemed, working with them. And that kind of was like, okay, this is new. This is like different. Like, okay, we're seeing a redeemed Cody, and then Bad Batch is kind of bringing towards those same things. Is it actually going to happen? Is he going to be having some kind of reunion with Rex? I don't know. We've got 14 more episodes to figure that out, but I'm interested in seeing where this goes with the clones as they continue to be continually more and more oppressed by the Empire, and what Clone Force 99 is going to do about it. So, any overall thoughts on these episodes and what they were going for, and where you think the season might be going, or where you hope it goes before we head out of here for the night?
Like I said up top, this felt like a breath of fresh air. This felt like it has already a little bit more direction and a central idea. I don't know what to expect. I'm just, staying optimistic and hoping I enjoy this one more than the first season. I'm excited for more.
Yeah, I'm hoping less episodic storytelling, more like broader throughout the season, more story arcs. I'm interested in seeing where Cody comes in, where Gunji comes back in, all that stuff I want to see. But I also want to see the Bad Batch more go from the mercenaries to directly fighting the Empire, not just running from them or trying to steal from them. I like the interesting parallels to a lot of stuff that we've gotten recently, like Brotherhood, like Andor, like Tales of the Jedi. And also, it was just nice to see Star Wars animation again. Yes, we had Tales of the Jedi, but that felt like just a blip in time. And really, to me, only the Dooku ones were the ones that really clicked for me. The Ahsoka ones were just kind of like Clone Wars extras. But it was nice getting back in there. I will always. I can never pass up a new Kevin Kiner score. I can never pass up D. Bradley Baker playing 8 billion voices and just sounding so wonderful doing so. And I'm excited. I'm a big Bad Batch guy, and I'm excited to do these recaps as we've done with Obi-Wan and Andor, and I'm excited for what we're going to have for the rest of the season. So thank you all for joining us on our first installment of our Bad Batch recaps. We'll be back here every week talking about the Bad Batch with myself and the rest of the For the Republic crew who could not be here today, but they're with us in spirit. Connor's definitely not watching this, but he's
Connor got sent to bed by his dads. And,
his podcast.
And I think Jake still hates me. So
I don't think he liked these episodes, so he would have been like, it's all right. And then Connor
I haven't seen his Twitter, so I wouldn't know.
So it would have been a much shorter episode if they were here, but we had some.
I'm gonna be real with you. If Jake was here, he probably would have pulled me down and like, let's just kick it mood, which I don't like being in, but sometimes it's fun.
Well, I know that's what happens here. You never know what's gonna occur. Jarod, where can the people find you? What have you been working on? And any last things?
You guys can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at Dark Jedi 2552. And you can find my shows, the Nerd Academy Podcast, Knights of the Nerd Republic, on YouTube under the Nerd Academy Podcast, and wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all in one podcast feed. We're on a little bit of a hiatus. I am officially moving, so I'm going to be getting moved in and then setting up Studio 2.0. And from there, we'll be back in action, back better than ever. In the meantime, we have a lovely little back catalog of lots of shit for you to watch or listen to. Hopefully by the end of the week, we'll actually be dropping a episode of the Versus series from the Patreon vault into the main feed. Cal Kestis versus Kylo Ren. Keep your eyes out for it. The Nerd Academy Podcast, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts.
Perfect. Why do I get the feeling that I know someone that's on that Cal Kestis episode?
So it's funny you mention it, because normally it's just Spencer and I. Normally it is just me and Spencer for the Versus series. However, this time around, since Spencer hasn't played Jedi Fallen, he hasn't actually played it. He's watched a lot of it, and he watched all the duels and stuff to get a handle on how Cal fights. But I was like, I think for a more whole conversation, a certain one-eyed knight should be here. In the same way that if I wasn't the host of the Versus series and they did Vader or Kylo, they would need to have me on to really get in the weeds. And that's also, every season has a Darth Vader episode. So
yeah. If we ever do Knights of the Old Republic stuff on this podcast feed, I might have to pull that with someone else and just need to get an expert on the field, because that is just my blind point in the fandom, unfortunately. But you can follow myself on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can also find me tucking Connor into bed because he could not be here today as his podcast dads talk some Star Wars.
I've been trying so hard not to laugh all night because I don't want to start hacking.
Intended. But you can find that. You can also follow us on YouTube, For the Republic podcast. Get us up to our subscriber goals so we can start doing some fun live stream content on there. And also find us on Twitter at For the Repub Pod and on Instagram at For the Republic Pod. As for what you can find from us coming soon, we will be having our Bad Batch recaps every week, but we also have a special end of 2022 episode coming out early next week. We're going to be talking about our favorite stories of the year. All four of us will be giving our 5 favorite stories of the year, so look out for that. And we'll have our Clone Wars discussions coming back soon. It was supposed to be this week. Scheduling happened, but we'll be talking, I think next is the Blue Shadow virus. So COVID-19, the episodes, it'll be very fun to revisit that. So from Jarod and I...
Early pandemic, we kept making Blue Shadow virus jokes.
We sure did. I remember watching it again for the first time since COVID and was like, oh, this doesn't feel right.
This shit too real.
Yeah. So look forward to that. But from Jarod and I, thank you for watching. And as always, we'll see you later. And may the Force be with you always.